first person who made the call to say that George W. Bush had been elected President of the United States was the person who was in charge of Fox News's election analysis division, the people that crunch the exit polling numbers. That person was a gentleman named John Ellis, and he is George W. Bush's first cousin. At around 2 a.m. on election night, a new set of data had come in, and it was complex data from precincts all over Florida. The proper answer in analyzing that data unquestionably was you couldn't tell. It was too close to call. There was simply no clear winner. Instead, John Ellis called it as a clear win for George Bush.
And so set us on a path to 2 wars and tax cuts for the wealthiest people and deregulation of Wall Street and a crashed economy as a result of that and FEMA directors who were really horsey lawyers and CIA directors who said they weren't qualified to work at CIA and all kinds of corruption in the government and all kinds of, and that little clip, that was John Nichols, who you now know from Wisconsin, okay, who's been doing a fabulous job of covering the Wisconsin union busting, was featured in a movie called Out Fox that was made by a guy named Robert Greenwald, who has produced and directed 53 different movies and miniseries and all. I mean, he did Iraq for Sale, The War Profiteers. He did Walmart, The High Cost of Low Price. He did Uncovered the Iraq War, Unprecedented, Unconstitutional. He did, an amazing, and this Out Fox movie is now so current that I reached out to him because I want to talk to somebody that, has been following Fox News and all their shenanigans for all these many years. So please welcome to the show, Robert Greenwald. Hey, Robert.
Hey, Randy. How are you?
I'm freaked out. I really am. All weekend, I've been sitting here watching this story unfold. I've been watching Fox not cover it. They have this one show called Fox News Watch where apparently they watch, but they don't report. They don't say a damn thing about this scandal. Now we find out that the whistleblower from News of the World, he turns up dead in his house today. Scotland Yard, you have, the head of Scotland Yard, the deputy commissioner of Scotland Yard. They're all resigning. Rebecca Brooks is arrested. Neil Wallace, the deputy editor, ends up being the PR consultant for Scotland Yard. He's been arrested. You got this guy named Sir Paul Stevenson, the commissioner of Scotland Yard. He's stepped down. What the hell's going on?
Well, it's quite a day. What can who would have ever thought we would see the chickens come home to roost in this way? But they really are, Randy. And for those of us and you and your listeners and people who've been trying to hold Murdoch and Fox to any kind of a truth test, this is important developments because it has severely weakened him, and more information is coming out about this ideology that, if you think about it, Murdoch possibly has had more impact on the United States of America in the last 15 to 20 years than any other single individual, even more perhaps than presidents, because of how he and Fox and his newspapers have influenced our policy, leading the run-up to the war in Iraq, being the mouthpiece for the Tea Party, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you just did a new movie about the Koch brothers, and, you were talking about the things that Rupert Murdoch and the Koch brothers have in common. What are those things, and why do you see the common denominator there?
Well, the common denominator is when individuals have this extraordinary amount of power, and the Koch videos, by the way, are available free on the Facebook. We have Koch Brothers Exposed, or the Koch Brothers Exposed website, or if you follow me on Twitter, we're putting them all up for free. And what you see in that case, they're both billionaires, but you see them both trying to buy their way to controlling large parts of our democracy, to buy their way to using their ideology. In the case of the Koch brothers, we released one showing literally how they pay millions and millions of dollars to think tanks and pundits who then create the storyline and the exact language that is used by politicians around Social Security. And we have another investigative piece coming out, and the similarity with the Koch brothers and Murdoch's, other than their billions of dollars, is that they see nothing wrong with using their money in ways that are detrimental to the majority of people in the country, in the world, and it's all about getting more and more money. I mean, you'd think, how many billions of dollars do you need, Randy, right? You take 1 or 2 billion. It's not enough for these guys. More and more and more. And they're spending all this money to get more money and more power. And they both are consumed with this notion of power.
Well, we now know bribes were paid to police, and we know that soldiers killed in action and their families were targeted for, spying. And U.S. senators have asked the Department of Justice to investigate whether or not, American citizens were also targeted. But, there's so many similarities between what's going on in Britain, and yet people here really aren't taking this seriously. I know it's wall to wall in the U.K., but they're not taking this seriously, even though you can show that a New York police commissioner who's now on the federal pen was protected by Murdoch, and that Judith Reagan, who worked for Murdoch, was given $11 million to go away and shut up about him, only to prolong the agony. He did end up, after all, in prison, but was supposed to be our Homeland Security director. And then you see that the Tony Snow from Fox News ended up being W's press secretary, and you see that this Andy Coulson guy from News of the World ended up being David Cameron's communications director. I mean, it's so identical. The MO is so similar that if we don't investigate this here, this is the only opportunity that we will have to be unoutfoxed.
Well, I think you're right, Randy, and I think it's very important. And as you know, we went back when we did Outfoxed, and you were one of the few folks who would talk about it. We had great resistance, even from folks on our side, saying, oh, they're not really that bad. And it's also been a consistent problem over the years with elected officials who will run on Fox at the drop of a hat. But right now is clearly an important moment, and it's a very important moment to all of your listeners to let their officials know we want an investigation. Laws are being broken. It's a culture of corruption at that company that Murdoch has had. And how much power do you want in the hands of one man? And we really have to show them. David Carr has a great article in the New York Times today, which I posted on my Twitter, and he quotes someone who works for Murdoch talking about bedwetting liberals. Well, this is an opportunity to show him that we are anything but, that in fact we are going to hold their feet to the fire, and we're going to say enough is enough. We demand an investigation, and we demand to know what is going on, how it's going on, who is doing it, and to really put a spotlight on Murdoch and this corporation.
Well, look, if they did that, one of the things that could end up happening is a simple thing. They could actually remove the Murdoch family because the price of shares have, tanked. And, there are lawsuits from the shareholders that have said that, in their complaint that Rupert Murdoch was running it like his own little, party palace for his own political enjoyment and for his own, building up of, people that he liked, whether they were, conservative or Democratic. He would have a fundraiser and play both sides of the aisle, but mostly he was, pretty much, punching out that conservative mantra and then blackmailing Democrats into believing that they could be destroyed by, Fox News as easily as anybody else. So either you play ball with him or, he would destroy you. So they could just simply demand that the, Murdoch family take their hands off of this property, and it could keep on going with the same MO and the same agenda, just different people. How possible is that?
Well, I don't think that it would be the same. I mean, Murdoch is...
wouldn't they have to clean house? If we actually investigated, wouldn't we figure out that Americans for Prosperity and the Koch brothers and all these, the Heritage Foundation, which are really all the same people, it's the same handful of giant business interests that are, coalescing around these think tanks. Cato Institute, Koch brothers. Heritage Foundation, Koch brothers. Americans for Prosperity, Dick Armey with the Koch brothers. Do you know what I mean? So, and now with Murdoch, it's really the same couple of, people. And wouldn't it be something to actually find out that there's been plugola or payola? Things that violate our law. You have to actually stay within the law to keep your license. Now, they're talking about violation of the Foreign Corruption Practices Act, which says Rupert Murdoch, as an American citizen, can't bribe Scotland Yard or any other foreign official, and he may be guilty of that. But why don't we actually go around and, start enforcing our own laws about, paying for the message to be embedded in a newscast, which is illegal?
Well, I think that, as we know, that's why we want an investigation, and that's why we want an investigation on multiple fronts. Again, in the New York Times today, this was a story I'd never even heard about. The News Corporation has spent over $500 million in fines related to corporate espionage and anti-competitive behavior for one of their subsidiaries, News America. Yeah. Now, what is going on over there is just one example, but I think that with an investigation, which hopefully will happen, you expose things, and then often is the case, Randy, as we're seeing, it's not just the deed, it's the cover-up. That's what gets them. It gets them over and over again because of a belief and an arrogance that they can do anything we want. But bottom line, one man, one company, way too much control over our democracy with Murdoch. That's the similarity with the Kochs, who are buying their way to that kind of control and influence. And it's time to fight very, very hard to use this opportunity that's right in front of us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I wish Americans would pay attention, but obviously the news is so twisted and so rigged and so minuscule about what goes on in other parts of the world, that's for sure. I mean, there's no foreign bureaus anymore, but I did read that New York Times article, and I just cannot believe how much money. I got a caller today who said, he's offended because here's his tax dollars. Rupert's an American, News Corp's an American company. They're supposed to be paying taxes here. He comes up with, negative tax rates every year, and then, he lobbies for more. You got the Chamber of Commerce trying to do away with the one law that actually looked like it might threaten his empire, which is the Foreign Corruption Practices Act. And, they're up there lobbying to do away with that one law that could hold this guy accountable. And right now we have the key that unlocks the door that actually could unravel this stranglehold that he has on legislators, presidents, Justice Department officials, and all the rest.
Well, you just hit it, right? It's a stranglehold. And just think about that for a minute. Think about the size of our country. Think about the complexity, and think about this incredible hold one man and one company have by design. Everybody talks about, Murdoch loves newspapers. Nonsense. Mm-hmm. What he loves about the papers is it gives him control over the politicians. And when he gets control over the politicians, he uses it for deregulation, for more profitability, for changing the rules so he can own TV, radio, press, all in one market, that he can keep forcing through these changes. And as our friends at Free Press have pointed out over and over again, this is why it's very, very important to fight media consolidation. So what we have here is a perfect storm that raises several issues. It's the issue of the media. It's the issue around media consolidation. It's the issue around oligarchies controlling our country. It's the misuse of money. And it's an opportunity that has been given to us because some great journalists in the UK stayed on this story, and forced it out into the public eye.
What did you think? Did you see? I mean, I watched Fox News this weekend because I wanted to see if they were going to cover it, because I thought, well, if they have nothing to hide, then they won't hide anything. That famous thing, if the government has nothing to hide, then why are they hiding everything? Right. So, and I see Judith Miller on there trying to blame The Guardian as a liberal newspaper, with an axe to grind. I'm like, people are showing up dead this morning. I don't know how she blames that on a newspaper.
Well, that's their standard line, right? There was a wonderful clip, again, that I posted on Twitter and Facebook, which was an interview that somebody at the BBC did with one of the folks just before Rebecca resigned, and he's busy defending her, and the guy can barely talk. It's hysterical.
Oh, I saw it.
But it also reminds you of what real journalism like, because here's a reporter, and he's saying, how can this woman lead the investigation?
Right.
Good question.
Yeah, and he keeps pressing her. He says, this guy from News of the World, it keeps on insisting with this BBC reporter, is a serious guy, keeps insisting that Rebecca Brooks is going to look into it. And he goes, but she's part of the problem. How does she investigate herself? And he goes, well, she's got this well in hand. And,
Right.
And there's something about a British accent that makes it seem okay for a little while. And then you realize he's just as dumb as a rock. Do you know?
It was like Monty Python, I thought.
It was.
The whole section.
It was. Well, thanks so much for taking time. I really appreciate all your movies, brave new films. Go to, what is it, CokeBrothersExposed.com?
Yes, on Facebook or on the website, or you can follow me on Twitter and get all this.
I will follow you on Twitter. I'll sign him right up for you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Randy.
Okay.
Bye-bye.